Hello and welcome back to X's and O's. As always, seeing where my mic is on my headphones. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Peter Warkowski, joined by my other co-host, Mr. Bubba Hayes. Bubba, how are we doing this surprisingly nice Thursday evening?
Pretty good, Peter. Yeah, we'll take the slightly cooler weather. Not that it's going to stay for that long, but
Ugh, it's in my throat all of a sudden. But yeah, took last week off. I had a surprise trip to Chicago to see the Cubs reunion tour. Our reunion special was not a tour. So that was pretty cool. But we're back this week. We're gonna do another top five as things are still a little quiet. Maybe get back on track. I was gonna say next week, but we might need to take next week off. I got a wedding I gotta get to. Not mine. Um, but a wedding I have to
well,
be
that would have
at.
been a surprise to hear
Yeah,
that.
surprise everyone. Not only am I with someone, we're getting married. No. So we'll see what the schedule looks like next week. But I do want to talk about the NFL because that'll be ramping up pretty soon here as we're just what 7, 8 days out of August. So kind of moving along in the summer. But we're doing another top five, at least for now. As per me and Bubba have both picked a top five subject that we'll do one half and then the other. Bubba, I will let you pick which top five, yours or mine, that we want to start with here.
Let's start with, we can start with mine.
Okay.
Yep.
So Bubba's top five was top five sports broadcasters. So this is play-by-play or color. This is TV or radio. We're staying away from talking heads. So any studio shows, unless they also are on a broadcast, we will not be
Yeah.
talking about them. Podcasters, social media, writers, sideline, all that good stuff. We'll save that for another time. So now we're strictly sticking to play-by-play and color on TV and radio. Bubba, is your topic. I'm going to let you go first with your whatever number this is, if they're numbered at all.
Okay. Yeah, I guess first I will give my honorable mentions. This is one that there were so many, decent ones I felt like to choose from just because, from there's obviously a lot of different types of broadcasters, whether they're, specialized in one sport or whether they are kind of the, voice of several different sports. So there was a lot of good ones to choose from. So some honorable mentions. Al Michaels, I guess it would kind of be controversial to be on the honorable mentions given the career he's had, but I did,
Yeah, but Al Michaels right now, I would
yeah,
say for sure he's kind of lost a step.
yeah. Another honorable mention, Eddie Olczyk, who I
Yeah,
think does a really good job on the hockey broadcasts. And finally, Dan Schulman. I feel like you would know him. He used to do Sunday Night Baseball. I think he's the
it's
voice of the Blue Jays. He does college
yeah,
basketball for ESPN.
I'd
I just
recognize
think
him if I heard him. Yeah.
he has a very good voice. He does, I think, playoff baseball for ESPN. So I think he does a really good job. So those are my honorable mentions. But starting off with the top five, I have Joe Buck at number five.
Hmm.
Maybe a controversial pick. Yes, he is a St. Louis guy, so I do, have some fondness for him. But I do honestly say I think baseball has kind of especially the playoffs have gone downhill since he stopped calling the playoffs in baseball. I mean, obviously he's, had some really special calls, and obviously I'm again biased with the one with the Cardinals, but he's was kind of the face of the playoffs for many years. And
Hmm.
obviously, he's kind of taken a step back now as, he does Monday Night Football still, but that's not giving him the opportunity to call, many huge games, at least in the playoffs. But I think just because of how well he's done in two of the, top four sports in American, history, I think he's deservedly in the top five for now. Obviously, a great pedigree himself and a good story with the family he comes from as well.
My opinion on Buck has geared more positive over the years. Early years, I didn't really care for him. I thought he was pretty stock standard. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, good voice, like he did a good job, but I thought he was pretty basic, if that makes sense. But
Hmm.
I don't know, ever since the last couple of years, and kind of the opposite of what you said, since he left, Fox and
Yeah.
doing all the football games that he could and the baseball games and really just focused on, where he is now, Monday night. I've grown to like him a little more. I think he's kind of loosened up a little bit in his
Yeah, I
age.
think that's fair to say.
And that's just my personal, I mean, Ba- Back in my day, I did a little broadcasting, and like that was always my favorite way to do it. Was like kind of personable, sociable, like talkable, more
Yeah.
conversation than like very strict broadcast. And I think he's kind of geared that way a little more since he moved off of Fox.
Yeah.
So I do like him a little more now than I did back in the past. But yeah, if we're doing this, top five based off of pedigree, then obviously, yeah, he's been one of, if not the biggest names out of the last, God knows how many years, 20
Yeah.
something. So I'll give you it. I
Okay.
went in a little different direction with my top five, kind of a more lesser known picks. Not
Okay.
lesser, not these aren't like unknowns, but like
Yeah.
not, I don't have Buck or Michaels or Tirico. Though
Mm,
I will say Tirico would probably be an honorable mention. I really like Mike
okay.
Tirico. Um,
More to
Darren
come.
Darren Pang would probably be an honorable mention,
Okay.
which I didn't really realize how good he is until he joined the
Yeah.
Blackhawks broadcast because the Blackhawks had a rough transition period. Their TV guys quit. They kind of shuffled through a lot of guys, and it didn't really work out. And then they brought Panger on 2 years ago, I want to say
Yeah.
2 or 3. Stole him from here in St. Louis, and like that's when I kind of realized, like, oh, like this guy's really
Yeah.
good.
And I'm not sure if you remember the other guy on the Blues, but John Kelly. Can you believe we
hmm
had those two guys at the same time and now we don't have either of them? That's
Yeah.
kind of a
So
heartbreak for
I
St.
I
Louis.
like Panger a lot. As for my actual top five, where do I want to start? I'll start with I don't know if he's the least known. Maybe. I'll start with Eric Collins. This is gonna be a really off the board pick if you don't know, if you're not very well versed in broadcasters, but he's the play-by-play guy for the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
I
also
feel like you've mentioned him, but
He's
I can't
done,
remember him
and
off the top of my head.
he's kind of coming back around and doing more stuff. So he's done some college football. He's done some NFL. He did the Cardinals Cubs game when PCA hit a home run into the tarps off section.
Ah,
So
okay.
he does some Saturday night stuff for Fox.
Okay.
If you want just explosive jump out of your seat broadcasting, Eric Collins is it. I mean,
Okay.
just look up an Eric Collins compilation on YouTube, grab a beverage of choice, and like just enjoy it. It's just amazing. The guy literally loses his mind at everything. I saw a clip yesterday. This is before I even knew we were doing the subject. I saw a clip yesterday. He was calling professional softball for whatever reason. Some shortstop for whoever, I don't know who it was, made a diving grab and he just lost his shit. I mean, the guy is just as exciting as they come. Um, and he kind of had it good in Charlotte because they weren't good, but they had some flashy players who really helped them out. So, and he's with Steph Curry's dad on the broadcast.
Okay.
Dell. I almost said Seth. Dell. They're a good team, but Eric Collins is just explosive. And funny enough, he was probably my favorite tidbit about him was when Vince Scully stopped. There's a period where he wasn't traveling much with the
Hmm.
Dodgers. He only did like San Fran, Arizona.
Okay.
I think
Like divisional
Arizona.
games.
I think Arizona was the furthest. Maybe I don't know if he did Colorado. He definitely did Arizona.
Okay.
Um, any games that he didn't do, Eric Collins would do.
For the
And
Dodgers.
for the Dodgers, and just the juxtaposition, because again, Eric Collins just loses his mind. So,
Yeah.
um, definitely one of my favorite. Has insane catchphrases all around, super exciting. So
Okay.
that's my first pick.
Yeah, you're right. That one is one I think I've heard, but I think I've mostly heard from you, so I will have to
Yeah.
check him out. My number four, this is again someone you'll know. I would say a little bit underrated. Chris Fowler,
Hmm.
obviously known as the voice of college football. He's
Hmm.
also, the voice pretty much of tennis as well. And I think it's really interesting how for him, I think you'd be hard pressed to find, a play-by-play announcer. And it doesn't matter what sport he does, he comes across as very knowledgeable. Yes, he makes very good, calls on the broadcast, but, he definitely gives off the impression that he knows a lot about the sport. And it also helps for him that, he seemingly has a good relationship with the people that he does the broadcast with, so that helps whether it's Herb Street on,
Right.
college football, or some of the rotation of people he works with on tennis, John McEnroe, Chrissy Everett, some others. So I think him, I would say, you know, probably just one of the most ultimate professionals of the broadcasting profession. He's my number four, and I would say slightly underrated considering, the many different things he can do.
Yeah, I don't because I'm not a tennis guy, and I watch college football if it's on. I don't really seek out college football. But from what I know of him, I like him. I will say, what's your opinion, since you mentioned him, of Herb Strait?
And, it's interesting. I still like him more than I don't. I find him to be pretty. I think he's definitely like an expert on what he's talking about. And I will say, I think for the most part, I take his opinion, to be pretty objective. Obviously, sometimes he calls games, and obviously he did play for Ohio State, and some
Hmm.
people will say he is, still biased, whether it's like for Alabama, or just kind of the bigger names in the sport. But for me, I've always liked him because I think he does a good job. But in the last couple of years, I think he's starting to be more associated with like the Pat McAfee lane of
Yeah.
commentating, and he's just all over the place, even when it's not really about commentating. And obviously he's getting dragged for bringing his dog everywhere too, which is kind of funny, but RIP his late dog.
That
Um,
that's my I don't really have a strong opinion on Kirk either
yeah.
way, except for the dog thing. This is I don't know if this is a hot take. Look, it was fun. Who was the first dog? Was that Peter? Was Peter the first one?
Ben was the first dog,
Ben
I
was the one
think.
who passed away. Like
Yeah.
it was fun. It was unique. It was cool, whatever. And then Ben unfortunately passed away.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, he walks out with
Yeah, the
Peter,
new one.
who looks exact because they're golden retrievers, so
Yeah,
they all
yeah.
look exactly
They
the
all look.
same. It's like, damn, Kirk, is the grave even cold yet?
Yeah,
Like, it's
exactly.
like, look, it was fun. Everyone loved Ben, or
Yeah.
no one disliked Ben, but like, really, are we gonna keep dragging this around with just a look-alike? So,
Yeah.
that's my hot take on Kirk, Kirk Herbstreit is
Fair enough. Yeah.
all right, Ben was cool. Let's leave it with him. So,
Yeah,
get
fair
another
enough.
dog. I don't care about getting another dog. We don't need to do it again with Ben 2.0. So, anyways, where am I gonna go? I'll stick with football, and I don't know if he's in my top five, but I wanted to shout him out because I've actually really respected what he's done over the last year, which is Tom Brady.
Okay.
I
That's
think
interesting.
I think Brady has grown a lot between the first year he did it and then where he was this last season.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's fair.
and again, is he in my top five all time? I don't know, but I wanted to at least talk about just, because when he came in, like, yeah, obviously they're going to put Tom Brady on a broadcast. And I still
Yeah.
don't like the fact that he's partial owner of a team and he's
Yeah.
broadcasting. I think that's a conflict of interest. But in terms of him and his skill, like, I really liked Brady this past year.
Yeah.
I thought him and KB were a good team. I think obviously Brady's very knowledgeable. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't become the greatest quarterback ever by his physical attributes, let's put it that way. So like he knows what he's talking about. And I think kind of like I said with Buck, like he really loosened up this year too and was
Yeah. I
just kind of fun to listen to. There were plays, of course, I mean, I watched the Bears and there were multiple Bears plays where someone would do something and he would just start screaming. He would just start like yelling and it's like, dude, that's exciting. Like I did not expect that out of Tom Brady. So, um, again, is he in my top five all time? Probably not, but just the growth you see in him from year one, where you could tell he's trying to be a little broadcastery into year two, where he's kind of letting his personality out a little more. Um,
okay.
and there's that one broadcast where he shows up he had a leather glove on his throwing arm, which was really
Yeah.
funny for no
Yeah.
reason, and only his throwing hand. So yeah, again, top five all time, probably not for me, but I really, I grew to really like him this year after being very indifferent on him,
Okay.
during his first stint.
That's interesting that you say that. And I think I kind of view him in a similar way as I did Romo, who also kind of had a rough first year and then really, started to gain some fans his next year. And then now after that has kind of started to get,
I
shat on again. So we'll
yeah,
see kind of
I
how it
think
goes the next couple years for Brady, but
yeah,
that is interesting.
Romo went too far in the personality direction. Like even for me, I not too far. You can tell he's trying really hard.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
like when he first came up, like I thought he was great, like super knowledgeable, maybe not the most, fun, personable guy yet, but like just insanely knowledgeable about the
Yeah.
game. And now it gets to a point of like it's just he's trying really hard to force those moments almost of, oh my God, did you see what
I don't know,
Romo
Jim.
did you see what Romo did on the broadcast last night? Yeah, I don't know, Jim. It's
Yeah.
so and I don't really know what the solution is other than just like, let it be more. It just doesn't come across as natural anymore.
Yeah, that's fair
Like
enough.
you said, he kind of had that sweet spot of very knowledgeable, but also just kind of a natural at it. And now he's gone too far, and like you're trying really hard to be, I don't know if funny is the right word, but be
Yeah.
exciting, be funny, be a personality. And yeah, I've lost a lot of interest in Tony Romo over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Hopefully Brady doesn't veer too, because Brady felt even if when he got excited this year, he felt natural in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully he doesn't pull a Tony and go too far in the other direction. But
Yeah. The only
um,
thing I will say that gives me pause on Brady is, I don't know that it's a great thing if you have an announcer who I mean, obviously, yes, we have a lot of former player announcers who, are big stars in their own right. But with Brady, I think sometimes, some of the stuff he accomplished in the past or the stuff he still kind of does can sometimes be a distraction from the things he says. I mean, if you
yeah,
just followed the headlines in the last week, like, I don't know what the hell he's been up to, like getting in slap fights with the Paul brothers. I don't know
right,
if you've seen anything about
yeah,
that. But I don't know. So I do think you can tell, that he knows what he's talking about, which we all know he would, but I do think it came across very naturally this last year. So um, moving to my third place on the order and kind of connecting it to Tony Romo is Jim Nance,
hmm
who, obviously doesn't need much introduction, pretty much I would say the lead broadcaster in some respects for three different sports. You have football,
yeah,
golf with,
yeah,
the Masters at least and some of the other tournaments. And also for many years, he was the voice of March Madness, and now he's
right,
kind of stepped away from that. I mean, for him, it's not so much that he makes, oh my God, the best calls ever, but it's just really, it's pretty impressive to be at like the top of basically, his profession for this long in this many different sports. And, I think whenever you hear him on a game, you just know it's an important game, whether it's a regular season football game or just, a random PGA Tour tournament. He just kind of brings, I think, an elevated sense to a lot of the events he does.
yeah, yeah. I think of like, I don't want to say stock standard because that sounds bad, but like
Yeah.
of kind of that older broadcaster, like
Hmm.
serious almost. Like I think he is the
Yeah.
best of those. I don't know. I don't know who else, like maybe you include Al Michaels in that group. I don't know who else
Yeah.
to include, but yeah, I think he does a good job for sure. And maybe wish he had a better partner than Tony Romo, but
Yep.
whatever. Well, that inspired my next pick. I originally had someone else, but he is kind of linked to my number one. He was the only guy I have ranked here as my number one. So I'll talk about him then a little bit. Three guys popped in my head. I'll have two of them as additional honorable mentions. I think Mike Breen deserves a shout out.
Yeah.
Obviously his bang call is as iconic as it gets for
Yeah.
basketball. Another basketball guy, but also some football. Ian, not Ian,
Yeah.
Ian Eagle. Um,
Really
really,
good.
really freaking good. I kind of
Yeah.
underrated, but really good. Like great voice. He's funny. his son is also a
Yeah,
broadcaster, and
yeah.
wasn't there a March Madness game where they were both on it? I
I,
think
I, yeah, I'm not sure
I think
if it was a game. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
Ian
Yeah.
was doing TV and
Noah was doing radio.
Noah was doing radio, and Noah sounds just like his dad, which is
Yeah, he
crazy, but
does.
I
Yeah,
do really like Ian Eagle.
yeah.
The third guy who came to mind who is going to be my pick is Kevin Harlan.
Okay,
Um,
he's a good one. Yeah.
Kevin Harlan's kind of the more polished version of Eric Collins. Not to
Okay.
diss on Eric Collins because I love Eric Collins and he's
Yeah.
unhinged and it's great, but like Harlan gets really excited. He plays, there are compilation, especially during an NBA season, of him just kind of goofing around, having some fun. I mean, there was one, I don't know if you ever saw the clip. It was supposed to be space whoever had his prompter got it wrong. So he started reading an ad for crispy chicken tenders from I don't know who it was because but then the sponsor was CarMax. So he's like, try the new spicy crispy chicken tenders, and then the graphic pops up for CarMax and he goes, CarMax? And he goes, what? Um it's great.
That's funny.
He loses his mind over Wembenyama all the time, which
Yeah.
is really funny. He's got a great voice. He had the iconic when he was it was the playoff implication game. One game was Miami, someone. The other game was I think it was Miami Patriots and then Chiefs and somebody, and I think the one
Hmm.
seed was on the line. And so like they simulcast him on the TV and they had
Mm.
him call both games.
Ah,
And he's
that's
trying to
cool.
call both games, and his color guy, I forgot who it was. His color guy's like, "What are you doing?" And Harlan's like, "I'm calling both games." And that I think that call is iconic. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think Kevin Harlan is really good. I kind of want to give it to Ian Eagle too, just because I think he's a little underappreciated, but
Yeah, he is.
I'll give it to
Maybe not for long, but
I'll give it to Harlan.
okay. Yeah, I think that's a good one. And he's another guy who can do a couple different sports.
Hmm.
I've heard him a lot on March Madness the last couple of years, and yeah, he has some pretty exciting calls. Number two, this one you kind of mentioned earlier. A lot of people probably wouldn't have him this high up, but Mike Tirico,
Hmm.
um, I just think like I mean, he could call like a cornhole match, and I think it would be,
Yeah.
very well professionally done. I mean, he can pretty much do whatever. He can do play by play. He can do the host job in the studio. He
Hmm.
does a great job with golf, with the Olympics, with Sunday Night Football. He just pretty much does everything right. And I mean, I think if anybody was like a wannabe in that profession, that's who you would love to model your career after because
Hmm.
Mike Tirico is just a real pro. And I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad thing about him either.
No.
I'm sure someone will or has, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard about it.
No.
I just find him to be very good at his job.
Yeah, I think the only knock I would have against him, if it is a knock, is, he does lean it more towards that super professional side a little too
Yeah,
much sometimes, but then again, that's a personal preference I have is I
yeah.
like the more casual conversationalist guys than, the super broadcaster kind of guys. But no, you're right. In terms of kind of that well-roundedness, he's it.
Hmm.
I think it was a really good choice having him replace Al
Yeah.
for Sunday Night Football, at least. He knows when to get excited. He knows when to drop back. I kind of wish he had a more interesting partner than Chris. Um, I
I don't
mean,
know why I really like Chris for some reason. I wish they still did the
Chris is
Collinsworth slide.
I know I was just gonna mention the Collinsworth slide, and I mean Chris is fun to like kind of make fun of or like quote, and
Yeah.
yeah, the Collinsworth slide is really funny.
I,
He kind
I
of
I used to follow this account on Twitter which would rate his slide every week. So they'd have the video of his slide and be like, that one had a little bit more energy. That one's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know about Chris. My main drawback with Chris is other than he plays into I think he plays into the caricature too much now
Yeah, he
almost.
does. You might be right about
And
that.
on top of that, he gets hyper fixated on players really
Yeah.
easily. I mean, the running joke is the Mahomes.
Yeah.
That throw looked a
Yeah,
little
but
Mahomey, but
But it's a lot of players. Yeah, that
he
whole
did
thing
it with,
fixated.
obviously this one really pissed me off. He did it with Aaron Rodgers all the time. I mean, there were,
Hmm.
I don't know, I can't tell you when it was. I just distinctly remember watching a Bears Packers game, and the Bears were on the field driving, and they just kept cutting back to Rodgers sitting on the bench. He's like, there he is, ready to go. It's like, Chris, he's not doing anything right now. And then the other one was last year when the Bears played not the 49ers, the Commanders, whoever the Commanders uh rookie running back was. He had the hyphenated last. It was Bill McCoskey something. I can't tell you off the top of my head. It was hyphenated. He was like super super into this kid, and like the guy was
Okay.
having a decent game, but it's like, Chris, there's a whole other game going on. Like, what do
Yeah.
you like? Why this guy? So I don't know. That's my thing with Chris. Um, my second to last pick, probably my number two, just for an abundance of reasons. Pat Hughes, the radio play-by-play for the Cubs.
Okay.
I mean, as well regarded and as iconic as they come in terms of guys who are still doing it. He's been
Yeah.
doing it forever. That is my one knock against him, is like he is showing his age a little bit now.
Okay. A little bit
Um,
of Mike Shannon going on.
not even that, just like he'll forget stuff, like he'll kind of zone out sometimes. Now to his credit, he kind of plays into it. Like when he can't remember something, he just goes, I don't remember. It's like, all right, well, at least you're acknowledging it. But I mean, the
Yeah.
guy's in the Broadcast Hall of Fame. Like, I've been listening to him since I remember listening to sports, because, my dad listens to the Cubs radio about as much as we listen to the TV broadcast. So like he's always been there. And then yeah, during, game seven of the World Series in 16, we turned off, because that was Buck calling it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we turned off Buck to turn on the radio broadcast. And no, a lot of respect. It's getting towards the end of his career, clearly. I don't know how old he is. Got to be mid to late 70s at this point. He's been doing it for decades. He works really well with, I mean, he worked with Ron Santo. Now he works with Coomer, Ron Coomer. So just thought I took my mic out. I don't know. The guy's iconic. That's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
say. So,
Yeah. I think that's a good one. And I mean, I easily could have put Ricky Horton, who does the he's on the radio now for the Cardinals. He used to do
mhm.
TV, but it is kind of nice when you sort of feel like you get to know those people because we hear them so many times a year for so many years that they have their own kind of things that they and patterns they fall back in. It is kind of comforting. My number one, who I guess has now been retired for a couple years, and is I think it's fair to say is pretty well loved by pretty much every fan of the sport. Doc Emmerich.
Yeah,
I mean, and I wouldn't even say, he's definitely kind of breaks the mold of some of these other ones I listed here of like your classic announcer because I would say he's even like more old school than them, obviously because he is quite a bit older. But he also just had, just moments of like elation and
right.
just some really good calls that I think, I have several in my mind that, I still think about from time to time when I hear those clips again. So obviously he had a really good long career and just another guy, whereas like it seemed like everybody who watched playoff hockey just loved Doc Emmerich.
Yeah, I didn't even really think of Doc. I thought of, I guess, another honorable mention. I thought of Pat Foley, who was the Hawks TV guy until he retired a few years ago, which started this whole cascade of lesser people until Rick Ball, the current guy, who's pretty good, especially with Panger. But yeah, obviously I grew up with Emmerich too. Since since I started watching sports when the Hawks were going deep in the playoffs every year. Like I listened to him a lot every year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, iconic voice, and he really had it nailed. Of knew when to be professional, knew when to get really excited. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that is a. I didn't even think of that one, but that is a good pick. My number one, not nearly as famous as Doc Emmerich, but I think really speaks to people our age, is Adam Amin.
Okay.
So
I
he
kind of figured he was going to be in your top five. Yeah.
So he's done. his main gig is, well, I don't know about main gig. One of his most consistent gig is he does the Bulls play-by-play.
Yeah.
He's him and Stacey King, who was my Kevin Harlan pick, but I'm gonna add him to my Adam Amin pick kind of. Stacey King, who just passed away within the last month, actually, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Only
He
reason to
does
watch.
baseball too, right?
Amin does, yeah.
Yeah.
So Amin and King were the only reason to watch Bulls basketball the last couple of years,
Mm.
because it's been pretty mediocre at best. And then yeah, did some. He was their number two for Fox. I think as early, as late as last season,
Yeah,
it
I
it
remember
was
that.
him and Wainwright,
Yeah.
who were actually a really good team.
Yeah, they do. Or they were,
And
excuse
then
me.
he's done some Fox football. Not really any. Part of me, not really anymore. Unfortunately, I didn't really hear him a lot this last year. But I mean, the guy covers all the bases. Like, good voice. He's very, very knowledgeable about everything. I mean, sports, obviously, but also just kind of worldly stuff.
Hmm.
I distinctly remember there was I think it was the beginning of the 24-25 bowl season when they were really talking about how they're just mediocre every year, which they were. They brought, I mean, went on for like 10 minutes about the myth of Sisyphus, who is the Greek legend of the guy who keeps rolling the boulder up the hill just to have it
Hmm.
to fall back down. So he's talking about that for like 10 minutes. Like, the guy is incredibly smart. He DJs on the side, which is really funny. He like actually gets club gigs and just super personable. Him and Stacy were very, very conversational, which I've heard as a knock against them is maybe
Okay.
sometimes too conversational, but that's what I like. So that's why I have him ranked so high. Also, just a super nice guy. When I was starting out in broadcasting in undergrad, I reached out to him a few times for some stuff, and he like immediately responded back, like incredibly nice guy. And I mean, he's 39, but he comes off as younger as that.
Yeah.
So I think that really speaks to, people our age. So, yeah, Amin's our number one. My number one. I kind of wish that he started getting spread around a little bit more like he was. I mean, 2 years ago he was doing Bulls basketball, Fox football, and then Fox baseball, and like that was great because you could hear him during every season, basically.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, and it's probably on him too, maybe some personal, like maybe he didn't want as much work. Like
Yeah, which is fair if he's 40 now, but
he's kind of taking a step back, and he's going to do Bulls basketball, and and also just the last thing I'll say is like he's kind of the dream of what if I pursued broadcasting full time, which I'm not, but if I did, like, there have been multiple instances of him taking, 4 flights in 3 days, basically to
yeah.
cover everything. I mean,
Yeah.
he did for either TV or radio, he did when the Cubs opened up in Japan last season against the
Mm.
Dodgers. He went out to wherever he was in California, broadcast it from there at, whatever ungodly time it was in
Yeah.
California, immediately flew like to the East Coast to do a Bulls game and then flew somewhere else for another baseball game. So like the guy just is a workhorse.
Yeah.
And I do wish that he kind of was a little bit everywhere again. So all right, well that'll do it. I was just really itchy for some reason. That'll do it for the first half. Our top five broadcasters out of the way. We're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have the other top five for the episode. Alrighty, welcome back. Bubba and I have returned from our break as we're ready to wrap up this episode of Top 5 with another Top 5. This is my suggestion for the week. Top 5 dominant stretches by an athlete. So, this is not necessarily top 5 dominant athletes, even though I think a lot of these picks, at least a lot of mine, could probably be considered that as well. But these are more snapshots into their careers, 1 year periods, maybe a couple years, maybe part of a season, whatever it may be. Just stretches where one athlete just kind of dominated whatever sport they were a part of. So, Bubba started off the last top five, so I'll do the honors for this one. Definitely could consider this one of the most dominant athletes of all time. My personal GOAT. Um, my first pick is Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Sorry to be basic. Specifically from the start of the 90-91 season to the end of the 97-98 season. Obviously, there were the 2 years where he played baseball, as well as the one
Mhm.
season where he only played half a season when he came back midway through. So, not really counting those. But in terms of those 6 full seasons, 6 consecutive full seasons, Jordan's accolades read as 6-time champ, 6-time finals MVP, 4-time MVP for the regular season, 6-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star MVP. Not that that really matters. 6-time All NBA first team, 6-time All Defense, 6-time scoring champ, 1-time steals leader. He was also a steals leader before this. 3-time AP Athlete of the Year, and obviously was part of the 1992 Dream Team that
Mhm.
won the gold medal. In terms of an individual dominating a team sport like basketball, I don't think it gets much more dominant than that. Yeah, I think the other part of that you can add on to, and obviously you and I didn't experience this firsthand. We came
Yeah,
quite a number of years after this stretch that I'm talking about, but just the grip he had on the global zeitgeist. I mean, if you've watched The
yeah,
Last Dance, the guy was everywhere and was one of, if not the most famous people living on the planet, athlete or otherwise. So like the guy, and obviously he had the Jordan shoe, which I know came out before this stretch, but still, like the Jordan shoe was obviously incredibly popular. Space Jam is somewhere in there as well. The guy just, for the 6 straight full seasons, um, the guy just dominated the league.
yeah,
I don't really know what else to say other than like, the fact that he was a champ finals MVP, all-star, all NBA first team, all defense and scoring champ every single one of those years. I mean, there are guys, the number of players who don't do that once are countless. And this guy just rattled it off 6 times in a row like it was nothing. So kind of a boring pick, but that is my first pick.
yeah. That's fair enough, and I'll have a little more to come on that later. You'll be happy about that. Number five for me, I just felt like I had to, to include this, and it is a little bit of a longer stretch, but it just speaks to dominance. So in tennis,
Hmm.
um, I would say I didn't just do one, I'd said the big three because, it's very rare, I think, and obviously it's a little bit harder in team sports, but it's very rare in an individual sport to have probably the three best players of all time all play against each other in the same era, and yet, all still manage to have incredibly impressive and record-breaking careers themselves. So the big three, of course, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, from 2003 to 2023, they won 66 of the 79 Grand Slam titles. Only five other players won in that whole 20-year time span. They spent a combined consecutive 947 weeks atop the world at number one. And of that time, they accounted for 33 head-to-head finals and even more matchups. So for those three, I think it's just obviously it would just be special in an individual sport like that for just one of them to have a career like they had
Hmm.
over 20 years. I mean, it's almost hard to fathom what either one of those three would have accomplished if the other two weren't around.
Right.
Like, you have Djokovic and Nadal and Federer all winning over 20 Grand Slam titles, and that's against playing against each other, like, and at a relatively like equal level. I mean, it's pretty amazing to just consider what, almost what it could have been, for one of those guys if they didn't have to play against those other two. So I think just in terms of just sports accomplishments and just utter dominance over everyone else in the sport, I think that's a pretty remarkable stretch. And we're sort of starting to see maybe the early signs of a new, dominant top two with Sinner and Alcaraz. But
Right.
I mean, that 20-year stretch, it's just so hard to maintain that level for 20 years. And all three of those guys basically did for the majority of that time span.
Yeah, I mean that's you and I, that's like our whole life.
Yeah, exactly.
Practically. Since I don't have too much to add because I'm not a tennis guy, who would you put, how would you rank them
Yeah. I
in
mean,
your personal?
yeah, it sucks because I've always been a huge Nadal fan, but I think Djokovic at this point is the undisputed one just because he has the most Grand Slam titles, and Nadal is probably number two since he has the second most. And Federer, it's almost hard to believe, but he's technically, in most respects, the
Right.
third best out of those three, just purely off of Grand Slam titles. But obviously, there's a little bit of debate, but for the most part, people now agree that Djokovic is number one, which I really hate to say because I'm not a fan of the guy. But
Yeah.
results speak for themselves.
No. All right. Well, my second pick, and this is the kind of one that spurred this idea for me. As I mentioned, I was at the Cubs 2016 reunion show last weekend, or last week. It was actually a week ago tonight, Thursday. Um, and it just reminded me how crazy this guy's half a season was. Jake Arrieta, his second
Okay,
half of the 2015 season. So this
Cardinal
is
killer.
this is after the All-Star break. He had 15 starts. I didn't write it down. I think it was 15 starts in the second half. Went 12 and 1, so lost one game. Only had two no decisions. Which more credit to the team on him than that. To the credit to the team on that one. A .75 ERA, which is the second lowest over a second half of all time. I didn't see who number one was. It was probably Johnny
Maybe
Strong,
Pedro.
oh, I was gonna say Johnny Strong Arm from
Yeah,
1901.
could be that
Um,
too.
he had a no-hitter, his first career no-hitter on August 30th against the Dodgers, ended up with two. He had one in
Yeah.
2016. Ended the season with 20 straight quality starts.
Wow.
Crazy. Um, obviously went on to win the Cy Young, and then to add on to it, the little cherry on top in the the wild card game at the time, a complete game shutout against the Pirates,
Yeah, I remember that.
five hits allowed, 11 strikeouts. Ernie and I tidbit has nothing to do with Jake Arrieta. Ernie Johnson was the guy on that call.
Really?
Or like that Ernie Johnson. Yeah.
Huh. Oh, because I forgot TNT used to do those games. So yeah, that would be or
So,
TBS, one of those
which
two.
I don't remember that at all. I remember the Arrieta. I remember the game. Like I remember Arrieta, and I want to say Kyle Schwarber had a home run. I don't remember Ernie Johnson calling it, but
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, and obviously his first half was really good because he won the Cy Young. I think he finished with the right around two, maybe sub two ERA, but I mean a sub one ERA. 20 straight quality starts is insane.
Yeah.
And just is not something you see today with just how long managers let their pitchers go. Because
Yeah.
what's a quality start? 6 innings or
S-
seven?
6 innings and 3 runs or 7 innings and four.
Okay. So the fact he ended it with 20 straight,
Yeah.
which obviously went before the All-Star break because he only had 15 starts in the second
Yep.
half, just insane and kind of gets overshadowed because obviously 2016 is the year they won,
Yeah.
but 2015, like, and I remember watching it, like, yeah, you just kind of sat on the edge of your seat, like, is this the start where he finally, because even the most dominant pitchers, like, they get blown up every once in a while. So
Hmm.
you're just on the edge of your seat, like, is this finally the start where someone gets to Arrieta? And no one did.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the year you guys beat us in the
that
playoffs in
was
the
the
in the
year
NLDS.
they beat the Cardinals in the NLDS. Yep, that was kind of the precursor to that. That was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, this team's kind of for real. So,
Yeah, because the
um,
Cardinals were really good that
yeah,
year.
they had over 100 wins, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
um, so yeah, I went with that again. That was kind of the one that spurred this. Is like I think of dominance, I think of that. Like that guy's second
Okay.
half was damn near perfect. So,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of on the same track here. I wish I would have thought of a more, I guess you could say, niche reference, but I was just kind of thinking, overall. So this one, I'm sure you've heard of. I don't know if you're going to be familiar with these specific numbers, but Pedro Martinez, the
hmm
99 to 2000 season,
yeah,
generally considered to be kind of one of the greatest stretches of pitching of all time. So of this 2 year stretch, he had a 1.90 ERA, 41 and 10. He had 597 strikeouts in 430 innings, and he had 9 times as many strikeouts as walks. And he did all this pitching half of his games in Fenway Park
yeah,
during the PED era.
right.
So I think that's pretty impressive. Obviously,
Granted, Granted, he wasn't in the league with those PEDs, but still,
No, but that was still in the, that era. It's not like Barry and Mark and some of the
Sammy.
other guys were the only ones doing it, I'm
No.
sure. And also, he was pitching in the American League where they had the DH at that time too. So
Yeah,
that the
fair.
pitchers weren't hitting.
Kind of evened
So
out.
I think that's honestly as far, I mean, you could make a lot of cases for, shorter stints, but I
Hmm.
think that's generally regarded as kind of the best stretch of pitching in MLB history, at least in terms of some of those stats, just comparing them to others.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive there from P-Mart.
Yeah, I'm not a huge like baseball historian like some people are, but I don't know, it just feels like it's I could be totally off. Like obviously
Forgotten a little bit, yeah.
yeah, like obviously he's recognized as one of the better pitchers of the last, you know, 30
Yeah,
years, however long, But like, yeah, he kind of falls behind, not falls behind, but just in terms of notoriety, I think some of those other
yeah,
guys, maybe because he just wasn't winning titles like some of them were. So
yeah.
like, like
And
so like, because Johnson had to have won with the Yankees, I think, Randy. So
I think he won with the
he
D-backs.
won with the
I don't know
D-backs.
if he won with the
I
Yankees or
don't
not,
remember if
but
he was on the Yankees dynasty at all, but
I don't think so, but
but
he
no,
might have been.
but no,
But
he
yeah,
won. And
you are right.
Pedro was on that Red Sox team, right?
I believe so in '04, the
Yeah,
one that beat the Cardinals,
when
yeah.
they
But
when
I
they
guess for him the main thing was obviously the rest of his career wasn't quite as amazing as those 2 years, but those 2 years are just,
yeah. Well,
pretty
and
dominant.
also, late 90s, early 2000s, who was his biggest rival? Well, it
Yeah.
was the Yankees who were a dynasty.
Yeah.
So, a little unfortunate. But no, yeah, that's the stats say what they need to. Um My third pick, and I'm so pissed I kind of got late to the party on this one by just 2 years because I would have loved to have, well, maybe I would have hated it, but I would have liked to have seen it live. If you know anything about me, you know it's coming. Uh, Max Verstappen, second, definitely 2023, which people recognize, and we'll get to that. But also the second half of 2022, which people kind of forget about. He won second half of that season. There were 11 races. He won nine of them. Um, so nine out of 11, pretty damn impressive. Set the win record that season in 2022. Won the championship his second straight. And then, oh, I had it pulled up. God damn it! Now I look like an idiot. Uh, timeout, 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 timeout. And then 2023 comes along. And if you want to talk about dominance in a single season, and yeah, I know it's
Mhm.
racing. I know it's not a prototypical sport by some people's metrics. I mean, it isn't,
Sure.
but fuck it. I'm doing it's my it's our podcast. I'm gonna do it. 2023 won the driver's title, scored 575 points out of a possible 620. So he was out by 25, 45. He missed 45 total points. He was, and if you remember from our F1 podcast, hint, hint, wink, wink, F1, each team has two drivers. They drive the same car. So, like, that's kind of the battles that you look at is like, how are you doing compared to your teammate? He beat his teammate by 290 points, which is a lot.
Yeah.
If you took his teammate out of the standings, Max still would have scored more points than any other team, period, by himself. 22 races, he won 19 of them, so he didn't win three. His teammate Checo won two, and then Carlos Sainz won one. 21 podiums, he only missed it once. He got in the one race he missed it, he got fifth. Started the race in first place 12 times, so over half it. Had the fastest lap in a race nine times, so almost half. And then he won 86% of the races, which, especially in today's F1, where there are over 20 races, is super damn impressive. Won 10 races in a row, which broke a record. Most laps led in a season, 1,003 out of 1,325 total. So 75% of the season, he was the number one. He was leading. Uh, Largest points margin between him and the second place finisher of the season, which was his teammate. Um, so all in all, just total dominance. I mean, and racing is one of those sports where like bad things can happen at any moment.
Yeah.
You know, you get knocked in, someone actually clips you, you get knocked out. There was none of that. Like he finished every race. He had no mechanical f failures, and that is kind of the one asterisk people attach to it is he had the RB, what was that? The RB 20. There's the RB 19, which is considered one of the greatest racing cars ever made. Um, but it just goes to, but people have had the greatest racing cars ever made before and have
And
come
not,
nowhere
yeah.
close to that. It was just the perfect mix of dominant driver and dominant car. Um, and it was the reason for basically 2 years that year and then 24 and probably start part of 22. People hated him just because he won every single damn
Yeah.
race. But now that that's kind of settled down, people have turned the corner. Like a lot, most people like him now. Um, you step back and you're just like, holy shit, like 19 out of 22 wins is insanity. So, that will never happen again. I almost guarantee it. So
I
that's
have
my,
nothing negative to say about the man. I don't
yeah,
have much to say about him, period,
I
but I have
say,
nothing
yeah,
nothing negative to say about him.
ignorance is bliss.
But I can appreciate, just in what I've heard, just kind of what he accomplished in those couple seasons. I'll keep my number three short because it overlaps with one you already mentioned, but Michael Jordan, I specifically just said the 91 to 93 seasons
Mm,
where he won three straight titles, three
hmm.
straight, I believe he won three straight finals MVPs.
Yeah,
I don't think he won the overall MVP all 3 years, but he
no,
could have. I mean, he easily could have with his level of play.
I think Barkley got one.
Okay. I mean, but he averaged over 30 points a game with, pretty elite defense as well. I think that 3 year stretch, it's going to be pretty hard to, come close to, meeting that in 3 years, which obviously we know. I mean, in basketball, it's definitely possible for a team to have a three-peat, as we kind of discussed previously.
Right.
But, even if you look in the recent dynasties like a LeBron or Curry, I don't know that they're necessarily getting to that level that Jordan was at. And especially then, it's not like his career was confined to those 3 years either. He obviously won three more titles after that. So I just think that 3 year stretch is worth some accolades. So that's going number three on my list.
I do have a question because you mentioned it. And this is not me trying to be an ignorant MJ fan. Like I'm genuinely curious because I
Mhm.
didn't really think about it until you just mentioned it. Does LeBron, does he have a dynasty?
I would consider yes, but I wouldn't even consider necessarily even the teams he was on as being dynasties, but it's like at his level, I mean, he was basically in the finals. It felt like every
Well,
year
it
for
was,
like
I think, eight straight.
yeah. So I mean that's why to me it's I consider it one. Obviously he didn't have the overall success, but I mean he was in a way his own dynasty, I think you could say. But I also, to be fair, I did acknowledge that he wasn't at that same level.
No,
But
and again, I'm not trying to be an ignorant,
yeah,
oh, MJ's automatically better. Like I'm genuinely curious because like I think a key part of the dynasty is winning it. And, I think if there was one segment you'd have to say it'd probably be the Heatles, the four
yeah,
years the Heat made it, which they did win back to back. I don't consider back to back a dynasty unless it's part of something greater, like a three-peat or, like the Warriors who won three and four.
yeah,
And, that first year they got upset by some German dude named Dirk. And then, the last year they got beat by a legitimately very freaking good San Antonio team.
yeah,
I don't know. That's an interesting, I mean, yes, if you consider it just getting there and like I'd say dynasty over the East for sure because he won the
yeah.
East. He won the East 8 years in a row. So I don't know. That's an interesting.
I
I
mean,
don't.
I kind of just threw that out there passingly. If you want to go by the definition, I guess everyone has their own definition. But I mean, just the level he played at, and it's, as we've seen, you can have really special talent. It doesn't mean that they're gonna get to the finals more than once or win a finals more than once. But for him, playing at the level he was on and obviously being on, multiple really successful teams for a long period of time, I think you could consider that a dynasty. But yes, it's not like the Cavs were a dynasty, or it's not like the Lakers were a dynasty. And it would be a stretch, I guess you could say, to consider the Heat a dynasty. But I mean, especially if, because obviously the Lakers, not every year has been successful with them. But if you look at that stretch of when he was on the Heat to the Cavs, I mean, you know, there's a common thing there, going to the finals every year, and it's LeBron. Like, as I said, I'm not putting him on the same level as Jordan, as I said, but it's like, he still obviously played a really strong level. But obviously, my third one was trying to highlight Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
So kudos to Michael for those 3 years in his career.
yeah. Good job, Mike. I'll stick on basketball. Kind of back to the Arietta realm of dominance where didn't end up winning anything as a team. Did win an MVP out of it, but just talk about, dominance over a stretch. James Harden in 2018,
Okay.
2019, 32 games in a row scoring 30 points or more, which
Mm,
is crazy. Second longest 30 plus point streak in NBA history. Averaged 43.6 points a game, which is just a joke. Um, He's only behind Wilt Chamberlain, as most people are in individual
yeah.
stats, who had 65 games of 32 of 30 plus straight. I thought about putting Wilt, but there's so much discussion about,
Yeah.
what was the NBA like really like in the 60s. I kind of stayed away with it. Yeah, over 40 points a game. And I don't remember if this was he had a 60-point game, almost a double double. He had 8.7 rebounds and 7.6 assists. 40 points in 5 games, 50 and 2 and 60 and 1. Um, I don't know if it was that year or one of the years before where the Rockets just shot themselves in the foot against the Warriors by shooting 27 straight threes and missing. Anyways, yeah, talking about just one basketball player taking over during a stretch, like
Yeah.
being the offense himself. I also think it's a really interesting trend, which is kind of this heliocentric style of basketball where it's this is our dude.
Yeah.
Good luck. He's going to drop 40. We're going to get 15 points from this guy, 15 points from this guy, and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
Um, I think like Kobe, there some talks that Kobe was kind of that way too, maybe
Yeah.
especially after Shaq left. But and I remember when that was happening, that it's just like there's no stopping this guy.
Yeah.
He's whether they win or not, and they didn't end up winning. They didn't even go to the
Mm,
finals.
yeah.
Like he's just gonna go out and get his and just blow you out of the water.
You're gonna have to. Did he ever end up winning? Has he won? Um,
A ring?
yeah. Has
No.
Harden? He hasn't won. I didn't think so. Yeah.
And he's only been to the finals. Funny enough, the only finals trip was when he was with the Thunder, and he was
Okay.
basically the third option. It was LeBron. Well, speaking of LeBron, it was LeBron's first title with the Heat.
Okay.
And he was the third option basically
Yeah. Because he wasn't. Yeah. Wasn't with
behind
his.
Westbrook.
Yeah.
And then he got traded to Houston and just took off. So
Yeah.
no, ever since he's become the number one guy, and for a stretch he was maybe the best number one guy in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he hasn't even been to the finals.
Yeah.
So granted, he has always run through a very good Golden State team, but
Yeah.
still, it's just funny. Yeah, his one finals appearance is when he wasn't the guy. So,
Yeah.
trying to get back there, probably not going to happen. But
Yeah.
oh well.
Probably. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, for a couple of years there, I mean, he was sort of the guy, I would say. I think that's kind of fair to say, at least for a couple of year stretch, even if obviously his team, I guess he would have been on the Rockets then,
Yeah,
was not having the success that obviously he was. My number two, another throwback. Again, this one is kind of easy, but Wayne Gretzky from 81 to 87. I mean, obviously, I think people of our age, we know, about Wayne Gretzky and obviously that he's one of the greats. But I was just looking back through some of these numbers and I was just like, wow. So in that 6 year or 5 or 6 year stretch, he won two Stanley Cups. He won six straight Hart trophies, which is the NHL MVP.
Hmm.
He won six straight Art Ross trophies, which is the scoring champion. He had four times in those 5 or 6 years, he had over 200 points, which I'm not sure anyone else has done that. I don't know if anyone else has even had a 200 point season, but he did it four times in 6 years, and he averaged almost one goal a game, 0.9. Like to me, when I saw some of those numbers, because obviously, as I said, like it's not like we were around then, so
Right.
it's not like we're really. I that would just was kind of eye-opening to me, and explains why he's kind of viewed the way he is by people of older generations. So I think I'm going to give him the number two spot because that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and what I'll say about, I don't know who made this point. Stephen A is coming to mind. I don't think it was Stephen A because he doesn't acknowledge hockey as a sport. Someone made the point of like, of the big four, and it's not entirely on the individuals like football just because of the different positions, but like of the big four, like Gretzky's the only universal GOAT, kind of
Yeah,
like
you're
of the
probably right.
like where you ask, you ask 10 NHL fans who's the greatest of all time. I'd bet $50 that 10 of them say Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah,
You ask 10 NFL fans who's the greatest of all time. Well, you're probably going to get a multitude of answer. And again,
yeah,
that's partially because of the positionality of the sport.
yeah. But
Um, you ask 10 NBA fans, you're probably going to get mostly Jordan, but you're going to get quite a few LeBrons.
yeah,
You ask 10 baseball fans, you don't know
all
who
over the place. Yeah,
Babe, Barry Bonds,
Shohei.
one of the pitchers. No, please no. So
Well,
like,
there's plenty of people who would say
oh,
that.
I know there are. So yeah,
I'll wait till his career's over
so
before
yeah,
I
the
say anything
fact
about that.
that, Gretzky's kind of the only universe of the big four, he's kind of the only
Yeah,
universal, everyone thinks it's him. It is just telling of how dominant the guy was. Obviously the only, I don't know if you even consider it a knock, but after he four-peated with Edmonton, didn't get back there, didn't
yeah,
get back to the top, and that was pretty early in his career too. I mean, that was
yeah,
early 80s, but
yeah,
even if that's all he got, it's still four rings. So,
yeah.
can you really knock him for that? I don't know. So, all right, my last one. We'll go back to baseball. Um, Hang on one second. My dad wants my food order. Uh,
This episode is sponsored by.
Canes. Um, or get that coleslaw out of there. Give me an extra sauce. If anyone, oh no, we're running out of time too. If anyone does not sub their coleslaw out of their canes, respectfully, what the fuck are you doing?
I agree.
Anyways, all right. Back to our discussion. My last pick. Did I just get rid of it? Oh my God, I'm a dumbass. This is all over the place now. Here we go. And I was doing some research for another pick. Because those top three, Jordan, Arietta, Verstappen, like they came to mind immediately.
Yeah,
I originally had Michael Phelps just because I saw it a lot, but
yeah,
I'm not a big swim guy or even
yeah.
a big Olympic guy, so I felt kind of cheap putting that one there. That's why I subbed him for Harden. This one I found online, and I did want to say, uh, Mariano Rivera
Okay.
from 98 to 2001. So 4 seasons. And he's a closer, mind
Yeah,
you. Uh, a I've seen two different ERAs now, but right around two ERA, 163 regular season saves, and obviously won three consecutive world titles and a World Series MVP, somewhere in there. 98. As a closer again.
yeah,
98. 36 saves, 191 ERA, 99.99 whip, 99, 45 saves that led the AL, 183 ERA, .88 whip, so even better. 2000 took a little bit of a step back, 36 saves, 2.85 ERA, 1.21 whip, and then 2001, 50 saves, which led the AL, 2.37, 2.34, pardon me, ERA, 1.08 whip. Obviously had a insane cutter, like just insane repertoire. Um, 1998 to 2001 postseason, struck out 46 batters in 44 innings with a minuscule under one. Had 7 World Series saves, which broke the all-time record, and was, like I said, named the World Series MVP of the 98, where they swept the Padres, pitched 4 and 2/3 scoreless innings with a pair of saves. Um, I think what impresses me so much about that is, especially today, you don't see that out of relievers
No, yeah.
anymore,
Yeah, you're
of
right.
just back-to-back dominance. Like you see
Yeah.
dominant seasons. I mean, Mason Miller's having an incredible
Yeah.
year, besides some injuries. But like ERAs, relievers bounce around so much now in terms of quality. I mean, I think it's widely regarded. They have a good season, then they have a bad season. Cubs are seeing that with Phil Maton right now. Guy was
Yeah.
incredible last year. He's been absolute dog water this year for the Cubs. So the fact that Rivera did that for 4 straight years, plus the World Series workloads, like, or the workload of going to a World Series and winning it, um, pretty damn dominant, especially for a closer.
Yeah. I think that's a good point too, especially like I obviously, and what's interesting now is, I mean, at least in my opinion, it really seems like a lot of relievers have, y- you know, even filthier stuff than he had. And it's almost like you watch a guy like Mason Miller pitch and you're like, how does anybody ever hit the ball? Like
Hmm.
with some of the movement on that. And obviously now for him, I mean, he's had, I mean, assuming he kind of stays at least somewhat close to this pace, he'll now have 3 straight years with an ERA around his first 2 full years where it was around 2.5. So obviously he's legit good.
Right.
But you're right. There's not a lot of players that you see, do that back-to-back years or much less 3 years in a row. And I mean, it is kind of hard to believe that when you see how filthy some of their stuff is. But it's for whatever reason, it's just so hard out of the bullpen to keep that going. I don't know what that is, but maybe it's just the way the game has changed, or
Well,
it's changed for pitchers in the last 20 years or so.
and
Because obviously, you know, there was a couple more players kind of in the same, like you think of like a Trevor Hoffman, like
mhm.
I think 20 years ago you saw more of these closers that made a full career out of being
Mhm.
good closers. I don't think you could say that about too many now. Like, would you say maybe Chapman is the best over the
Yeah,
course of a long career? And even he's had some pretty bad years by
I
some
mean,
standards.
I think the two most recent guys who get anywhere close to that are Chapman or Kimbrel.
Yeah,
And so much of the closer game now is it's just velo, velo, velo,
yeah,
velo. I mean, Chapman is the poster child for that. Miller's a flamethrower.
yeah,
Helsley was a flamethrower. Obviously, we know about him. So
yeah,
like that's what people want out of their closers now is you're gonna go. I mean, the Cubs current Palencia, like he's a flame, like he's gonna touch over 100. So like
yeah,
that's what they look for their closer, and that just I think that just varies year to year. I mean, if that's what you're known for is throwing 102 miles per hour, what happens if you get beat up? What happens if your arm
yeah,
blows out? What happens if people finally figure out how to touch your stuff? I mean, that was always Chapman's weakest part
yeah,
was if somebody caught up to him, like it was leaving the park. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, the fact that, Rivera could do that 4 seasons in a row and obviously had a good career overall, just outside,
Yeah,
outside of that. But yeah, pretty impressive stuff. So
yeah.
that's
Okay,
my
so
final
my
pick.
so my number one, and this one, I mean, obviously you're not gonna be as familiar with it, but I think you could really make a case for this being one of the best stretches of any athlete ever.
I
I'm
feel
of
like I
course
know.
gonna say Tiger,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna go over. Obviously he's had for even like a 10-year period, he had probably one of the greatest careers of all time in any sport. But I'm just gonna focus on 2 years, 2000 to 2001. He at this time held on to all four majors at the same time, what is referred to as the Tiger Slam. Three of them were in 2000, one of them in 2001. These are just some of the accomplishments in these seasons. So he won, as I said, he had all four majors at the same 2000. He won 9 times on tour, three majors, player of the year. 2001, 5 times winning on tour, won the Masters, player of the year. 2000 is pretty much considered the best year of his career. He won the US Open by 15 shots. That just doesn't happen. And then he
Yeah.
followed it up a month later by winning the Open by 8 shots. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen really in any tournament ever. But if you're beating all the best professionals by that many shots, I mean, that just doesn't happen. And just this is more into the numbers, but now obviously a lot of sports like baseball have these advanced stats. Well, in golf, the most advanced stat is strokes gained. So
Hmm.
basically, after every round, they kind of have a number like this is what you gained against the average player in the field.
Right.
Well, for most players, the highest number we've ever seen for strokes gained is somewhere in the range of 2.5 to 2.8, which means they're gaining that many shots on the average player in the field for that round. Well, in this 2 year stretch, Tiger was over 3.0. So, in most respects, this is considered the best kind of 2 year stretch of any player, ever. I mean, obviously, it's very individualized for golf, but there's a lot of people, just general in sports, who would say that just because we've just never seen anything like it. Kind of like you were saying with Verstappen,
Hmm.
but we're probably not going to see anything like it again. Even the last couple of years, Scheffler was kind of the dominant number one and put
Right.
up a 2 year stretch that was you know, very similar to Tiger's stretch, he still wasn't anywhere close to the level of dominance that Tiger put up. So
Yeah.
for me, that's the undisputed number one.
Yeah. When I was looking online, I saw Tiger and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
Bubba's going Tiger. No doubt
yeah,
about it.
had to
So,
do it. Yeah,
so Tiger is your number one.
just as far as dominant, stretches. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really rank mine. I'd probably for stretch, I'd probably go Verstappen. Jordan's up there though. I mean, I didn't really realize it until I listed off all the accolades, but Jordan's up there. But,
Hmm.
again, just also playing an individual sport where, kind of same thing with golf. Like one little thing could go wrong. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously I'm not as knowledgeable in golf as I am, what I've talked about, but like, quick weather change, something's off, and like just because it's an individual sport, it's all on you.
yeah.
So, obviously racing, you have the car too, and Max had a really fucking good car, but oh well. All right. Well, that'll do it. We got less than a minute to go, so we're gonna wrap things up there. I don't know if we'll be back next week, but whenever we are back, probably touch up on some NFL before preseason gets underway. But until then, enjoy the rest of whatever night you're watching this on, and we'll talk to everybody next week or time.